Alright, this is a quick video on how I fixed the thermal throttling on my XPS 9570. This laptop's about 10 years old now, and it's had thermal issues from day one. A lot of the guides out there, and there are a lot, tell you to do some hardware modifications, repasting the CPU and GPU, which are all good ideas. Putting thermal pads or heat sinks on the VRMs, which also is a good idea. Also undervolting the CPU and or GPU using throttle stop, also a great idea. But this was finally what worked for me, and it was just increasing the fan curve, and which is kind of hard to do on Dell laptops, but it should work for you. It worked for me. So first thing you need to do is install hardware info, then open the sensors window. I'm going to close the fan control. And in here you can see a bunch of cool stuff reporting on your laptop information, core temperatures, etc. And in here somewhere is going to be your CPU and with some temperatures, like this CPU package says it's 64 degrees, 60 degrees, whatnot. And in fan, this little fan button, you're actually able to control the fan speeds. And those are reported, at least for me, down here. It says it's at 2000 RPM or something. You see my max value is 5100 on each of these. And the minimum is going to be 0. So I'll click open the fan. And depending on your Dell model, you'll need to use a different method to control the fan. So neither of these will be checked to begin with. So I'll try checking option 1. Maybe setting it to max and then click set manual on both. Do you hear the fan spinning up? Do you see this value going to 5100? If yes, that means it's working. If not, go down, select option 2, try setting them to 0, set manual. Does the fan spin down? Does it go to 0? In my case, it does. So that's the option that I need to use to control the fans. What you are actually in here for is this custom auto option, which is your fan curve. In here, for each fan, you do the same thing. Go in and select where you found your CPU temperature. In my case, you could use DTS or enhanced. DTS, select CPU package. Sensor 2 would be your GPU. This is optional though. You could select none. Then down in here is your fan curve. And in my case, I've done a lot of benchmarking with 3D Mark, trying to really stress and get it to high temperatures with the lid closed in a hot room, and I'm not throttling. So what you want to do is set this to about your max speed around 50 degrees, maybe 45 depending on if you can bear the noise and what performance you're looking for. But the real key is, yes, getting the max speeds earlier, but also never shutting off the fans, because shutting them off is what's allowing certain components in the computer to overheat before the CPU and GPU get hot enough to tell the fans to turn on and cool those other components. So I just set it to 2500. They'll always run. That's quiet enough for me. That's the lowest level without turning them off. I could set all of these to 5100 and then we'll maintain 5100 forever. Then I just do the exact same thing in my other tab. So I know this computer sits and idles around 38 to 48 degrees Celsius, so it'll always be around 2500, like if I'm watching a movie or something pretty low demand. But if I open a game or do some sort of download, compile, whatever, I wanted to boost to those 5100s because I don't want anything to lock up. And I don't care about the fan noise at this point. I just don't want my computer to go down and lock to a lower core speed. Okay, the next things you must do is check respin period. It should already be filled in. This is just going to check that the fan speeds are actually doing what it's telling it to do, and if not, recommand. Spin down after. This is normally set to 2 seconds, and it will wait to, let's say I set it to 50 degrees, spin up to max speed. If it drops to 49 degrees with no spin down time, it'll immediately go to 2500, but then that might just heat it back up to 50 degrees. So you want this to, I think, be between about 10 seconds and 60 seconds. The fans will run, cool it well below the threshold temperature, and then drop the fan speed. So these are the settings that work for me. Then it's important that you click minimize all. If you close this window, the fan control stops working. So just click minimize all. Then in hardware info, some settings that you're going to want to set up are very simply uncheck any of the show on startup, minimize whatever, click auto start, and that's really it. I've been testing this for a while across restarts. I literally just restart the computer, it comes on, and the fans are working with that new fan curve, and I'm not having any throttle issues. Now, the additional guides out there will tell you to undervolt, etc. I've tested benchmarking with only the fan curve, and it really helps keep away from thermal throttling. But if you need a little bit more help, I would go to those options. But the first thing I would try is the fan curve, like I just showed you, and then go into throttle stop tweaking. And in my settings, I'm able to do a full run of Fire Strike, which was the heaviest benchmark for this computer that would cause power limit thermal throttling on my XPS 9570 more often than the other benchmarks. I'm able to do that without disabling turbo now, and a decent undervolt, no thermal throttling, just with the fan curve. So I just want to walk you through some of the results here. The score doesn't really matter. All I'm looking at is like the CPU temperature. Yeah, it gets really hot in the CPU test, like 90 degrees. But because the fan curve is blowing air so much earlier, so much harder because of the aggressive fan curve, those other components that lead to the power limit throttle don't have a chance to heat up. So it went through this test without any issues. Then the clock frequency, if you looked at this, what I was seeing before is the CPU would lock down to 800 megahertz. I believe that's the right unit. And the computer was unusable. But now it's boosting to 3800, sometimes a little higher, 39, never locking down to 800. And I hate that this graph keeps changing, but it's doing great throughout the entire test. So it never locked. And not only that, but I was looking at this readout here in throttle stop, and it will tell you immediately when a certain type of throttle is activated, whether it be power, heat, whatever. Didn't happen. I sometimes would flash yellow and red like it was getting to that threshold where it may have locked the processor down to 800, but it didn't stick. So the next thing I might do, let's say if I want to lower the fan speed because it's too loud, what I would do, or if you're getting thermal throttle after doing all of this, let's go ahead and click disable turbo. That'll keep the CPU from boosting past, I think it's like 2200. We'll just save that. Speed shift tends to help a little bit. Save that. If you go into TPL, you want to check and copy the options I have here. This is all in the guide. Then down in Fiverr, the voltage regulator. In CPU core, undervolt, CPU cache, same thing, minus 125. Click OK to save voltages immediately. And if you do want to unlock your turbo, let's say you do think you have the headroom and you've done a few tests, uncheck the disable turbo, go back into Fiverr. You can play with these turbo ratio limits. For example, setting it to 36 would reduce the sealing of the turbo and potentially save some heat. I'm going to cancel that and leave my turbo on at max because I've just done the testing and it's doing just fine. I don't mind the noise. So I'm going to leave it just like it is now. No thermal throttles. I'm really happy about this. Hopefully this helps you. and have a nice day.